I came home to find my life in trash bags. My name is Madison, and I'm 22 years old. 3 hours ago, I was sitting in a corporate office downtown, nailing what I thought was going to be my first real job interview since graduating college. I drove home feeling optimistic for the first time in months, maybe even humming along to the radio. Now I'm standing in my own driveway, staring at everything I own scattered across the concrete like garbage day came early. "Mom?" I called out, my voice cracking as I stepped out of my beat-up Honda. "What's going on?" The front door opened, and there she was, Eliza, my mother, wearing her usual expression of mild annoyance mixed with fake concern. Behind her stood my father, Franklin, hands shoved deep in his pockets, avoiding eye contact like his life depended on it. "Madison, honey," Mom said, her voice dripping with that condescending sweetness she reserved for uncomfortable conversations. "We need to talk." "About what? Why are my clothes in the driveway?" "Well, your brother got that promotion at the firm," she began, smoothing down her perfectly styled hair. "And he's going to be working from home more often now. He needs a proper office space." I blinked. "Okay, and?" "And your room has the best natural light. Plus, it's time you moved out anyway. You're 22, Madison. Most kids your age are already independent." The words hit me like a slap. Kids my age? I just graduated 3 months ago. You said I could stay here while I looked for work. That was before Caden's career took off. Dad finally spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. This is a big opportunity for him. "So you're kicking me out? Today? Without any warning?" Mom's expression hardened. "We're not kicking you out. We're encouraging you to spread your wings. And frankly, we've been more than generous letting you stay here rent-free all this time." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Rent-free? This is my home. I grew up here. "It's our home," Mom corrected sharply, "and we've decided what's best for the family." That's when Caden appeared in the doorway, all 6 feet of him filling the frame with his stupid, smug smile. My golden boy older brother, the one who could do no wrong, wearing a designer polo that probably cost more than my car payment. "Hey, Maddie," he said, like we were discussing weekend plans instead of my homelessness. "Sorry about the timing, but you know how it is. Business waits for no one." "Business?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're an account manager, Caden. You're not running Microsoft." His smile faltered for half a second. "I'm building something here. Mom and Dad understand that. Maybe when you're older, you'll get it. I'm 3 years younger than you. And look where I am compared to where you are." The casual cruelty in his voice made my hands shake. I looked at my parents, waiting for one of them to tell him he'd gone too far. Instead, Mom nodded like he'd said something profound. "Caden has always been focused," she said. "He has goals, direction. And I don't?" "Well," Mom shrugged, "what exactly are your plans, Madison? You graduated with an English degree. What are you going to do with that?" I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. Because the truth was, I didn't know. I'd been sending out resumes for months, going to interviews, trying to figure out my next step. But apparently, that wasn't good enough. "Look," Dad said, finally meeting my eyes, "we're not trying to hurt you. We just think it's time you learned to stand on your own 2 feet. We did the same thing when we were your age." "No, you didn't," I said quietly. "Grandpa let you live in his basement until you were 25. Dad's face flushed red. "That was different." "How?" "It just was." I looked at the 3 of them standing there, my entire family, and realized something that should have been obvious years ago. I was never going to be enough for them. Not smart enough, not successful enough, not important enough to matter when it came down to choosing sides. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll get my stuff." "Madison," Mom called as I started loading boxes into my car. "Don't be dramatic about this. You'll thank us someday." I didn't answer. I just kept packing, box after box, bag after bag, while they watched from the porch like I was some kind of entertainment. It took me 4 trips to fit everything in my car. By the time I finished, the sun was setting, and they'd already gone back inside. I could see the lights on in what used to be my bedroom, could see Caden moving around inside, probably already planning his executive space. I sat in my car for a long time that night, parked across the street, watching my childhood home like it belonged to strangers. Which, I guess, it did now. But here's the thing they didn't know. The thing they never bothered to check. They don't know whose name is actually on the deed. 2 years ago, Grandpa Roland was dying. I remember the smell of that hospital room, antiseptic mixed with something sweet and cloying that I later realized was the scent of someone slowly leaving the world. Mom and Dad had gone down to the cafeteria, probably to argue about funeral arrangements or inheritance details. Caden was at work, naturally. Too busy to visit, according to Mom, though she said it with pride instead of disappointment. I was the only one there when Grandpa opened his eyes. "Madison," he whispered, his voice like paper rustling. "Come here, sweetheart." I pulled the plastic chair closer to his bed. His hand found mine, surprisingly warm despite everything. "There's something I need to give you." He gestured weakly toward the small table beside his bed. "Bottom drawer. There's a manila folder." I found it exactly where he said it would be. The folder was thick, official-looking, with my name written across the front in his shaky handwriting. "What is this, Grandpa?" "Open it." Inside were legal documents, pages and pages of them. At the top of the first page, in bold letters, it read, "Deed Transfer." My eyes scanned down until I found my own name listed as the new property owner. "Grandpa, I don't understand." "The house," he said, squeezing my hand. "It's yours now. Has been for 6 months, actually. I wanted to tell you myself. But Mom and Dad don't know. And they don't need to know. Not yet." I stared at the papers, my hands trembling. Why me? Grandpa's laugh turned into a cough. When he recovered, his eyes were clearer than they'd been in weeks. "Because I've been watching, Madison. I've been watching for 20 years how they treat you. How they treat him." He didn't need to say Caden's name. That boy gets everything handed to him on a silver platter, and you get the scraps. "They're not that bad." "Aren't they?" His grip tightened. "When you were 16 and wanted to take art classes, what did your mother say?" "She said we couldn't afford it." "And 2 weeks later?" I swallowed hard. "Caden got a new car." "When you made honor roll junior year, did they celebrate?" "They took the family out to dinner." "To celebrate what?" My voice got smaller. "Caden's acceptance to state," Grandpa nodded. "You've been invisible in that house your whole life, sweetheart. But you're not invisible to me. You never were." The machines around his bed beeped steadily, marking time we didn't have. "I bought that house in 1987, he continued. "Worked 3 jobs to afford it. Your grandmother and I raised your mother there, and when she married your father, I let them move in to help with the mortgage. But it was always mine, and now it's yours." "Grandpa, I can't." "Yes, you can. You're going to need this more than they are. Trust me on that." A nurse came in then, checking his IV and asking if he needed anything. When she left, Grandpa's eyes were getting heavy again. "Promise me something," he said. "Anything. Don't let them walk all over you forever. There comes a time when you have to stand up for yourself, even if it hurts. Especially if it hurts." "I promise." "And Madison?" "Yeah? When that time comes, and you'll know when it is, don't you dare feel guilty about it. You hear me?" 3 weeks later, he was gone. Now sitting in my car outside a 24-hour storage facility at 2 in the morning, I pulled out my phone and called the number I'd memorized but never used. "First National Bank, Safe Deposit Services." "Hi, I need to access my box. Number 247. "We're closed until 9 a.m., ma'am." "Right, sorry, I'll call back." But I couldn't wait. I drove to the bank and sat in the parking lot until they opened, watching early morning joggers and coffee shop workers start their normal days, while my entire world had shifted off its axis. At exactly 9 a.m., I was the first person through the doors. The bank employee, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, led me down to the basement vault. She inserted her key, I inserted mine, and the metal box slid out with a soft click. Inside was the original deed transfer, notarized and official. My name in black ink, Madison Owens Romero, legal owner of 1247 Maple Street. The house they'd just thrown me out of. The house they were planning to refinance for Caden's business dreams. The house that had never actually belonged to them at all. I held the papers in my hands, feeling their weight. 2 years I'd kept this secret, too scared of confrontation to use it, too conditioned to being small and quiet and grateful for whatever scraps they threw me. But Grandpa was right. There comes a time when you have to stand up for yourself. I folded the deed carefully and put it in my purse. "Okay, Grandpa," I whispered to the empty vault. "Let's do this." 3 days after they kicked me out, I got a text from my cousin Oakley. "Big party at your parents' house tomorrow. Come see Caden's amazing new office, 2 p.m. The audacity was breathtaking. They were throwing a party to celebrate stealing my room. I stared at that text for a full minute before typing back, "Can't make it, but have fun." Then I drove to Target and bought a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a cardigan I'd never normally wear. If they wanted to throw a party in my house, I was going to see it for myself. The next afternoon, I parked 2 blocks away and walked over. Cars lined both sides of Maple Street. Relatives, family friends, neighbors. I could hear laughter and music coming from the backyard. I slipped through the side gate like I belonged there, keeping my head down and my sunglasses on. The backyard was full of people I recognized but who wouldn't recognize me in my disguise. Aunt Patricia was there with her husband. The Johnsons from next door. Even Mrs. Martinez from the corner house. "Madison!" I turned to see my cousin Isabella approaching with a concerned look. She was the only family member who'd ever really gotten me, probably because her dad was Grandpa's other son, the one who didn't get the golden child treatment. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. I thought, "I'm not here," I said quietly. "Just observing." She glanced around nervously. "This is weird, even for them. They're acting like you never existed." "What do you mean?" "Come on, let me show you." Isabella led me toward the house, where a small crowd had gathered around the sliding glass door. Through the opening, I could see into what used to be my bedroom. It was completely transformed. My pale yellow walls had been painted a sophisticated gray. My old furniture was gone, replaced by a massive mahogany desk, leather chair, and built-in bookshelves. A huge monitor dominated one wall, and there were fancy lighting fixtures I'd never seen before. "Isn't it incredible?" Mom's voice carried over the crowd. She was standing in the doorway, gesturing like a real estate agent. "We gutted the whole room. New flooring, new everything." "How much did this cost?" someone asked. "Oh, we don't talk numbers," Mom laughed. "But let's just say we spared no expense for our son's success." I felt Isabella's hand on my arm steadying me. "And Madison was okay with giving up her room?" Mrs. Martinez asked. "Madison understood," Mom said smoothly. "She's 22 now. It was time for her to grow up and move out. She was actually excited about the change." The lie hit me like a physical blow. I was excited about being homeless? "Where did she end up moving to?" Mrs. Johnson asked. "Oh, she found a lovely little place across town," Dad chimed in from somewhere inside the room. "Very independent. We're so proud of how mature she's being about everything." Another lie. I was sleeping on my college friend Jaden's couch, and they knew it because I'd texted them my temporary address in case of emergencies. "Well, Caden certainly deserves this," Aunt Patricia said. "He's always been such a go-getter." "That's our boy," Mom beamed, always thinking ahead. "Actually, we're so confident in his business plan that we're looking into refinancing the house to give him some startup capital." My blood went cold. They were going to refinance my house to fund Caden's dreams? That's a big step, someone said. Big dreams require big investments. Mom replied, We believe in our son. I noticed she said, our son, not our children. Speaking of Caden, where is the man of the hour? Uncle Mike asked. Right here. Caden appeared in the doorway, arms spread wide like he was accepting an award. The crowd applauded, and he actually took a little bow. Welcome to my new command center, he announced. This is where the magic happens, people. Tell us about the business plan, someone called out. Consulting, Caden said, puffing out his chest. Corporate efficiency consulting. I'm going to help companies streamline their operations, maximize their potential. The market is huge. And you're starting this from home? For now. But once we get the refinancing sorted out, I'll be looking at office space downtown. Maybe hire some employees. Build an empire. Everyone murmured appreciatively. I wanted to throw up. What about Madison? Isabella asked loudly, and I wanted to disappear. Doesn't she miss her old room? The crowd went quiet for a moment. Caden's smile flickered. Madison's fine, he said dismissively. She needed to learn some independence anyway. Can't live with Mommy and Daddy forever, right? A few people chuckled. I felt Isabella tense beside me. Besides, Caden continued, this room was wasted on her. She just used it to sleep and read books. Now it's actually productive space. Productive, Mom echoed approvingly. That's exactly right. I'd heard enough. I turned and walked away, Isabella following close behind. Madison, wait. I'm fine, I said, pulling off my sunglasses as we reached the street. No, you're not. That was horrible. Yeah, well, now I know exactly who they are. What are you going to do? I looked back at the house, my house, full of people celebrating my erasure. I'm going to call a lawyer. Natasha Baker's law office smelled like leather and expensive coffee. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with sharp eyes and a handshake that could crush walnuts. So you own the house they evicted you from, she said, scanning the deed I'd placed on her desk. And they don't know. They have no idea. How long have you owned it? 2 years. My grandfather transferred it to me before he died. Natasha leaned back in her chair. Why didn't you tell them? I was scared, I admitted. I've never been good at confrontation. And honestly, I thought maybe things would get better between us. But they didn't. They got worse. She studied the documents for another minute. This is all legitimate, properly notarized, filed with the county. You are the legal owner of 1247 Maple Street. She looked up at me. What exactly do you want to do about it? I want them out. All of them? All of them. Natasha smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. I can work with that. How quickly do you want this to happen? As fast as legally possible. Standard eviction notice is 30 days. But since they're not paying rent and have no lease agreement, we can do this faster. 14 days. Perfect. My fee is $1,500 up front, plus costs. I pulled out my checkbook, the account I'd been saving money in since I was 16, funded by birthday gifts and summer jobs. Done. One more question, Natasha said as I wrote the check. Are you prepared for the fallout? This is going to destroy your relationship with your family. What relationship? I handed her the check. They threw me out like garbage. Fair point. 2 days later, everything was ready. Natasha had prepared all the paperwork, and I'd arranged for a courier service to deliver it at exactly 4:15 p.m., 72 hours after they'd kicked me out. I parked across the street at 4:10, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The courier van pulled up right on time. A young guy in a uniform walked up to the front door and rang the bell. I could see Mom through the window, looking confused as she signed for the envelope. The courier left. Mom closed the door. I waited. Through the front window, I watched her tear open the envelope, I saw her face change as she read the first page. Her mouth fell open. She called for Dad, waving the papers frantically. Dad appeared, took the documents, and his face went white. He sat down heavily on the couch. Then Caden walked into the room. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see the chaos. Caden grabbed the papers from Dad, read them, and started pacing. Mom was gesturing wildly. Dad had his head in his hands. Caden stormed to the window and looked out at the street. His eyes found my car immediately. The front door slammed open, and he came charging across the yard like a bull. I rolled down my window as he reached my car. "Is this a fucking joke?" he screamed, slamming his palm against my hood. "Language, Caden. Don't give me that shit. What is this?" He waved the eviction notice in my face. "It's exactly what it looks like. You don't own this house." "Actually, I do. For 2 years now." His face turned red. "That's impossible. Mom and Dad never owned it. Grandpa did, and he left it to me." "You're lying." I held up a copy of the deed. County records don't lie. Mom and Dad had made it to the street now, both looking like they'd seen a ghost. "Madison," Mom said, her voice shaking, "what is this about?" "It's about you kicking me out of my own house." "Your house?" Dad's voice cracked. "Madison, we've lived here for 25 years. In Grandpa's house, which he left to me, which makes you tenants. Tenants who just evicted the landlord." "This is insane," Caden snarled. "You can't just—" "I can. I am. You have 14 days to vacate the premises." 14 days? Mom's voice went up an octave. "Madison, be reasonable. We can't find a place in 14 days. You gave me 0 days." "That's different." "How?" She opened and closed her mouth like a fish. No answer came. "Look," Dad said, trying to sound calm, "let's all take a breath here. We can work something out. We're family." "Family?" I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to me. "Family doesn't throw each other out on the street." "We didn't throw you out," Mom protested. "We encouraged you to be independent. With trash bags, on the driveway, with no warning." "Madison, please," Dad tried again. "This is our home." "No," I said, rolling up my window. "It's mine." I started the engine. Caden pounded on the hood again. "You can't do this. We'll fight it." I rolled the window down just enough to speak. "Read the papers, Caden. It's all legal. You have 13 days and 22 hours left." As I drove away, I could see them in my rearview mirror, standing in the street, holding the eviction notice like it might spontaneously combust. My phone started ringing before I reached the corner. Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad called. Voicemail. Then Caden. Voicemail. Then Mom again. I turned off my phone and drove to Jaden's apartment, where I was still sleeping on his couch. "How'd it go?" he asked when I walked in. "They know." And now the real fun begins. The voicemail started at 6 a.m. the next morning. "Madison, it's Mom. We need to talk. This is ridiculous. Call me back." "Madison, it's Dad. Look, I think there's been some misunderstanding here. Let's sit down and work this out like adults." "Maddie, it's your brother. What the hell do you think you're doing? Call me back right now." 18 voicemails by noon. I deleted them all without listening to the full messages. At 2 p.m. they showed up at Jaden's apartment. "Madison!" Mom's voice carried through the thin door as she pounded on it. "We know you're in there." Jaden looked at me from his kitchen. "Want me to tell them you're not here?" "No. Let's get this over with." I opened the door to find all 3 of them crowded on the narrow landing. Mom's eyes were red and puffy. Dad looked like he hadn't slept. Caden just looked pissed. "Can we come in?" Mom asked. "No." "Madison, please," Dad said. "We just want to talk." "So talk." Mom's face crumpled. "How can you do this to us? We're your family." "You keep saying that word." I don't think it means what you think it means. Don't be smart with us, Caden snapped. This is serious. You're right. It is serious. You have 12 days left. Madison, Dad tried his reasonable voice again. Your mother is devastated. She's been crying for 2 days straight. Funny, she wasn't crying when she watched me pack my life into trash bags. That's not the same thing, isn't it? Mom stepped forward, reaching for my hands. I stepped back. Sweetie, I know we hurt your feelings. Hurt my feelings? I laughed. You made me homeless. We encouraged you to grow up. By throwing me out without warning? We thought you'd figure it out. Like you're going to figure it out in 12 days? Mom's face went red. That's completely different. We have a life here. We have roots. We have… What? What do you have that I didn't have? She opened and closed her mouth. No answer. Look, Caden said, pushing past Mom. Let's cut the crap. What do you want? I want you out of my house. What do you really want? Money? Is this about money? Everything's about money with you, isn't it? Name your price? I stared at him. You think you can buy me? Everyone has a price. Get off my friend's property. Madison, wait, Dad said, as I started to close the door. What if we paid you rent? We could work out a lease agreement. No. Why not? Because you don't get to kick me out and then negotiate to stay. But we didn't know, Mom wailed. We didn't know you owned it. You didn't bother to find out. How were we supposed to know? You could have asked. You could have checked. You could have treated me like a human being instead of an inconvenience. Caden stepped forward again. This is about your little feelings getting hurt, isn't it? Poor Madison. Always the victim. Caden, Dad warned. No, let him talk, I said. I want to hear this. You've always been jealous of me, Caden continued. Jealous that I'm successful, that I have direction, that Mom and Dad are proud of me. So now you're throwing a tantrum. A tantrum? What else would you call this? You're acting like a spoiled child who didn't get her way. I'm acting like someone who owns a house and wants the squatters out. His face went purple. Squatters? If the shoe fits. We are not squatters. We've lived there for 25 years. In someone else's house. First Grandpa's, now mine. This is insane, he muttered, running his hands through his hair. You can't just destroy our lives because you're mad at us. Watch me. Mom started crying again. Madison, please. I'm begging you. Don't do this to us. Where was this concern when you did it to me? We made a mistake, Dad said desperately. We admit it. We made a mistake. Yes, you did. So let us fix it. Some mistakes can't be fixed. Madison, Mom sobbed. I'm your mother. Are you? Because mothers don't throw their children away. We didn't throw you away. Then what would you call it? Silence. My phone buzzed. A text from Oakley. Hey, heads up. They're planning to contest the deed. Claiming Grandpa had dementia when he signed it over. Thought you should know. I showed the text to all three of them. Dad's face went white. You're going to claim Grandpa was mentally incompetent? I asked. We have to explore all our options, Caden said. He was sharp as a tack until the day he died, and you know it. He was sick, Mom said weakly. People say things when they're sick. He didn't say anything. He signed legal documents, with witnesses, and a notary. Madison, Dad tried one more time. Please, we're sorry. We're truly, deeply sorry. What can we do to make this right? I looked at the three of them, my parents and my brother, standing there begging me for mercy they never showed me. You can pack your things, I said. You have 11 days. I closed the door and locked it. They stood outside for another 10 minutes, pleading through the wood. Eventually, they left. Damn, Jaden said from the kitchen. That was brutal. Yeah, well, they started it. My phone rang. Natasha. Madison, I just got a call from their attorney. They're challenging the deed transfer. I figured they would. Are you prepared for a fight? I thought about Grandpa in that hospital bed, lucid and determined. I thought about the voicemails he'd left me in the months before he died, voicemails I'd saved on an old phone. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. The courthouse smelled like old wood and broken dreams. I sat next to Natasha at a long table, watching my family file in with their lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit who looked like he charged by the minute. Mom kept dabbing at her eyes with tissues. Dad stared at his hands. Caden kept shooting me looks that could melt steel. All rise for the Honorable Judge Martinez. The judge was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and no patience for nonsense. She settled into her chair and looked over her glasses at both tables. This is a hearing to determine the validity of a property deed transfer. Counsel for the petitioners, you may begin. Their lawyer stood up, straightening his tie. Your Honor, my clients are seeking to invalidate a deed transfer that occurred under suspicious circumstances. The deceased, Roland Owens, was suffering from advanced cancer and was on heavy pain medication when he allegedly signed over his property to his granddaughter. Allegedly? Judge Martinez raised an eyebrow. We believe Mr. Owens was not of sound mind when this transfer took place. Our clients had no knowledge of this supposed transaction and have been living in the property for 25 years under the assumption that they would inherit it. Assumption, the judge repeated. Do you have any documentation of this assumption? A will? A verbal agreement? The lawyer shuffled his papers. Well, no, Your Honor, but nothing. Continue. We're asking the court to recognize that this transfer was the result of undue influence by the respondent, who took advantage of a sick, elderly man. Judge Martinez looked at me. How do you respond to these allegations? Natasha stood. Your Honor, we have extensive documentation proving that Mr. Owens was of completely sound mind when he executed this deed transfer. The transfer was witnessed, notarized, and filed properly with the county. Furthermore, we have evidence that Mr. Owens planned this transfer carefully and deliberately. What kind of evidence? Audio recordings, Your Honor. Mr. Owens left several voicemails for my client explaining his reasoning and confirming his mental state. I pulled out my old phone, the one I'd kept specifically because it had Grandpa's messages on it. Natasha had helped me get them transferred to a format the court could use. Your Honor, their lawyer interrupted, these alleged recordings could be fabricated. Could be, but are they? Judge Martinez cut him off. Let's hear them. Natasha connected the phone to the courtroom's audio system. Grandpa's voice filled the room, weak but clear. Madison, sweetheart. It's Grandpa. I wanted to leave you another message about the house. I know I already explained everything, but I want to make sure you understand why I'm doing this. Your parents, they've never appreciated you the way they should. And that brother of yours, well, he gets everything handed to him on a silver platter. But you, Madison, you're different. You're kind and thoughtful, and you deserve something that's truly yours. I heard Mom suck in a breath behind me. The recording continued. I've been thinking about this for months, and I'm completely sure about my decision. Dr. Peterson says my mind is as sharp as ever. It's just my body that's failing. I want you to have the house, Madison. It's yours now, legally and officially. Don't let anyone tell you different. When was this recorded? Judge Martinez asked. 3 months before Mr. Owens passed away, Natasha replied. We have 5 similar messages, all recorded on different dates. Play another one. The second message was even clearer. Madison, it's Grandpa again. I just got back from the lawyer's office. Everything is signed and filed. The house is officially yours. I know you're worried about telling your parents, but don't be. This is my decision, and I'm making it with a completely clear head. Your mother is going to be upset, but she'll understand eventually. At least, I hope she will. I glanced back at my family. Mom was crying silently. Dad looked sick. Caden was staring at the table. Your Honor, their lawyer tried again, Pain medication can cause counsel, Judge Martinez interrupted. Do you have any medical records indicating that Mr. Owens was mentally impaired at the time of these recordings? Well, no, but do you have any evidence of undue influence beyond speculation? The circumstances are suspicious. That's not evidence. That's opinion. She turned to Natasha. Do you have the original notarized documents? Yes, Your Honor. Natasha handed over a folder, along with statements from the witnesses and the notary public who oversaw the signing. Judge Martinez reviewed the documents for several minutes. The courtroom was dead silent, except for the sound of pages turning. Finally, she looked up. The evidence is clear and overwhelming. The deed transfer was executed properly, with proper witnesses and notarization. The deceased was demonstrably of sound mind, as evidenced by multiple audio recordings made over several months. There is no credible evidence of undue influence or mental incapacity. She banged her gavel once. The petition to invalidate the deed transfer is denied. The property at 1247 Maple Street belongs to Madison Owens Romero, and she has the full legal right to evict any occupants as she sees fit. Your Honor, their lawyer stood desperately. My clients need time to find alternative housing. That's between them and the property owner. This court has no jurisdiction over private eviction proceedings. She gathered her papers. Case dismissed. As we filed out of the courtroom, Caden caught up with me in the hallway. You better hope Karma doesn't remember this, he hissed. I stopped walking and turned to face him. Karma? I said. Karma is me owning the house you threw me out of. Karma is you having to pack your life into trash bags. Karma is you learning what it feels like to be disposable. His face went white. You have 8 days left, I said. Don't waste them. Day 15 arrived with gray skies and the rumble of a moving truck. I sat in my Honda across the street, watching the crew I'd hired unload dollies and moving blankets. At exactly 9 a.m., the lead mover knocked on the front door of 1247 Maple Street. My house, Dad answered, still in his pajamas. I could see his mouth moving, probably trying to negotiate for more time. The mover shook his head and showed him the court order. Within minutes, the whole family was outside. Mom clutched a coffee mug like it was a lifeline. Caden paced the driveway in sweatpants, his hair sticking up at odd angles. Even Oakley was there, looking uncomfortable in the morning light. Ma'am? One of the movers approached my car. You're the property owner? That's me. We're ready to proceed. You want to supervise? Or should we just handle it? I'll supervise. I got out of the car and walked across the street. My family watched me approach like I was carrying a weapon. Madison, Mom said, her voice hoarse. Please, don't do this. It's already done. We couldn't find anywhere to go, Dad said. Not this fast. We need more time. You had 14 days, plus the extra day I gave you. 1 extra day? Caden laughed bitterly. How generous. More generous than 0 days. The movers were already carrying boxes out of the house. Boxes I recognized as the same ones my belongings had been thrown into 2 weeks ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. Where are we supposed to go? Mom asked, tears streaming down her face. I don't know. Figure it out. Madison, Oakley spoke up for the first time. This is crazy. They're family. Family doesn't treat each other like garbage. But you're treating them like garbage right now. No, I said calmly. I'm treating them exactly how they treated me. Mrs. Johnson from next door had come out to watch the spectacle. Then Mrs. Martinez. Then the family from the corner house. Soon half the neighborhood was standing on their porches, whispering and pointing. This is humiliating, Caden hissed. Yeah, it is. Madison, please, Dad tried again. We're sorry. We're truly, deeply sorry. What more do you want from us? I want you to understand what it feels like. What feels like? To have your whole life packed up by strangers while people watch. To have nowhere to go. To realize that the people who are supposed to love you don't actually give a damn about you. Mom sobbed harder. We do love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of me being grateful and quiet and out of your way. The movers brought out Caden's fancy desk, the one from my old room. It barely fit through the doorway. Careful with that, he shouted. That costs $3,000. Sir, the lead mover said, we're being as careful as we can, but you need to stay back. That's my office furniture. Not anymore, I said. Caden spun around to face me. You know what? Fine. Fine. You want to destroy our family? You want to be vindictive and petty? Go ahead. But don't pretend this is about justice. This is about revenge. You're right. It is. And you're okay with that? I'm more than okay with it. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I've always been. You just never bothered to notice. The movers brought out more boxes, more furniture, Mom's china cabinet, Dad's recliner, the coffee table I'd done homework on for 12 years. Madison, Isabella appeared at my elbow. I hadn't seen her arrive. Are you sure about this? Are you here to talk me out of it too? No. I'm here to make sure you're okay. I'm fine. Are you? I watched my parents standing helplessly on the sidewalk, surrounded by their possessions. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something that might have been guilt. Then I remembered sleeping in my car. I remembered the party celebrating my erasure. I remembered Caden calling me a burden. Yeah, I said. I'm fine. The movers finished loading the truck. The lead guy approached me with a clipboard. Everything's out, ma'am. Where do you want us to take it? I looked at my family. Where should they take your stuff? Madison, Mom whispered. Please. I asked you a question. Where do you want your things delivered? Dad pulled out his phone with shaking hands. There's a storage facility on Oak Street. We can rent a unit. You heard him, I told the mover. The truck pulled away, followed by my family's cars. Only Caden remained, standing in the middle of the empty driveway. You know what the worst part is? He said. What? You used to be the good one, the kind one. Now you're just like the rest of us. He got in his car and drove away. I stood alone in front of my house, holding the keys. The neighborhood had gone quiet again. The show was over. I walked up to the front door and let myself in. The house was empty. Completely, utterly empty. My footsteps echoed in the hallway as I made my way to what used to be my bedroom. The gray walls looked stark and cold without Caden's furniture. The hardwood floors were scuffed from the movers' dollies. It didn't look like my room anymore. It didn't look like anyone's room. I sat down in the middle of the empty space and looked around. I owned this house. I had won. So why did it feel so hollow? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your mailbox. I walked outside and opened the mailbox. Inside was a single envelope, addressed to me in handwriting I recognized but hadn't seen in 2 years. Grandpa's handwriting. I sat on the front steps of my empty house, holding the envelope with trembling hands. The postmark was from 3 years ago, before Grandpa got sick, before everything fell apart. Inside was a single sheet of paper in his careful handwriting. My dearest Madison, if you're reading this, then you've done what needed to be done. I asked my lawyer to mail this only if the house deed was ever challenged in court. I figured that would mean things got bad enough for you to finally stand up for yourself. I'm proud of you for fighting back. But I hope by now you've learned what I learned a long time ago. Revenge tastes sweet going down, but it leaves a bitter aftertaste. Power can be passed, but peace must be chosen. The house was never really about the house, sweetheart. It was about giving you options. Now you have them. What you do next is up to you. Don't build your new life on the ashes of your old one. Build it on something better. All my love. Grandpa Roland. Piek, check the basement, behind the water heater. I left you one more thing. I folded the letter carefully and walked back inside. The basement was dark and musty, exactly like I remembered from childhood. Behind the old water heater, I found a small metal box wrapped in plastic. Inside were more letters, dozens of them, all addressed to me, all in Grandpa's handwriting, all dated from different years throughout my childhood. I opened one at random. Madison, age 8. Today your mother forgot about your school play because Caden had a baseball game. You pretended it didn't matter, but I saw you crying in the garden afterward. You matter, sweetheart. Don't ever forget that. Another one. Madison, age 14. You won the writing contest, but nobody celebrated because Caden made varsity. I'm celebrating. Your story about the lonely dragon was beautiful. Keep writing. And another. Madison, age 19. You called me crying because they forgot your birthday again. I wanted to drive over there and give them a piece of my mind, but you asked me not to. You're too kind for your own good sometimes, but that kindness is also your strength. I sat on the basement floor, surrounded by letters, crying harder than I had in years. He'd been watching. He'd been keeping track. He'd seen every slight, every dismissal, every moment I'd been made to feel invisible. But he'd also seen me. My phone rang. Isabella. Madison, are you okay? I saw the moving truck leave. I'm fine. No, you're not. I can hear it in your voice. I'm coming over. She hung up before I could argue. 20 minutes later, Isabella found me still sitting in the basement, surrounded by Grandpa's letters. Oh, honey, she said, sitting down beside me. What is all this? I handed her one of the letters. She read it, then looked at me with tears in her eyes. He loved you so much. I know, and I used his gift to hurt people. You used his gift to protect yourself. Same thing. No, it's not. Isabella picked up another letter. Madison, they threw you out like trash. You had every right to... Did I? Did I really? I looked around the empty basement. Because I don't feel victorious. I feel empty. What do you want to do? I thought about Grandpa's words. Don't build your new life on the ashes of your old one. I want to sell the house. Madison, I can't live here. Not after everything. It doesn't feel like home anymore. Where will you go? I don't know. Somewhere new. Somewhere I can start over. Isabella helped me carry the letters upstairs. As we reached the living room, my phone buzzed with a notification. LinkedIn. Someone had viewed my profile. I opened the app out of curiosity and saw a message from a marketing firm in Portland. They'd seen my portfolio online and wanted to schedule an interview. What is it? Isabella asked. A job offer. In Portland. Oregon? Oregon. I stared at the message. Portland was 3,000 miles away from here. 3,000 miles from my family, from this house, from all of it. Are you going to respond? Yeah, I said, surprising myself. I think I am. I called Natasha that afternoon and told her to list the house. She found a buyer within a week, a young couple with twin toddlers who fell in love with the backyard. The closing was simple. I signed papers, they handed me a check, and just like that, 1247 Maple Street belonged to someone else. I used the money to move to Portland, where I got the marketing job and a small apartment with a view of the mountains. I started writing again. Not angry letters or revenge fantasies, but stories about second chances and new beginnings. I never heard from my parents or Caden directly, but Oakley texted me occasionally with updates. They'd found an apartment across town. Dad had taken early retirement. Mom was seeing a therapist. Caden's consulting business had folded after 6 months. I didn't feel satisfied by that last piece of news. I didn't feel anything at all. But I did feel something when I got a letter from a literary magazine accepting one of my stories for publication. And when my landlord complimented the flowers I'd planted on my balcony. And when my coworker invited me to her birthday party and actually seemed to care about my answer. Small things. Normal things. Things that had nothing to do with revenge or family drama or proving anyone wrong. I kept Grandpa's letters in a box by my bed. Sometimes I read them when I had bad days, when the loneliness felt too heavy, or when I wondered if I'd made the right choice. But mostly, I was too busy building my new life to look backward. I guess that's what peace feels like. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of something better. And for the first time in my life, I finally picked me. Update. I wrote this whole thing as a Reddit post because, honestly, I needed to get it out of my system. Thanks for reading if you made it this far. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well. Edit. Holy shit. This blew up. Thanks for all the support, everyone. And yes, Caden's LinkedIn shows he's working at a car dealership now. I didn't go looking for that information. It just appeared in my suggested connections. Karma works in mysterious ways.